He was big, he was intimidating, his presence could fill the room. We all know this about Pat Quinn. All the accolades are filtering in now. The big Irishman passed away on Sunday at 71, way too early. A man who loved hockey. I had the experience as a young reporter in 1989-90, my first year covering the National Hockey League with the Canucks. Pat Quinn was the general manager. I remember I was ushered into his office by Darcy Rhoda, who was then the public relations manager, to meet Pat. And yes, he was intimidating. And I got to know Pat pretty well over that time. I was there right through 1997 when he was let go by the organization. And I'll tell you something, Pat Quinn could be difficult with the media. He had an uneasy relationship with reporters like me, but Pat Quinn never held a grudge. He may yell at you for something you wrote, but 5 minutes later he was fine. He would talk to you. He was actually a very nice man. I really enjoyed my relationship with him. I certainly observed the way he could motivate players, the way he treated people, always first class, a terrific person. As far as his record goes, it speaks for itself. He'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame, I think, very soon now. There's no question about that. Took his NHL teams to the Stanley Cup twice, including the Canucks, of course, in '94. Gold medals at the international level. It just goes on and on. I can remember Pat Quinn always being gruff with me as a reporter. I remember one time in Los Angeles, where he'd lived as a coach when he coached the Kings, and standing outside the bus one day after practice before the players arrived, and he and I just chatting about what it was like to live in Los Angeles. One thing I'll always remember about Pat, that he is a guy who could talk just about anything. He loved hockey, but he also had a personal side, very personable man. I do recall when Trevor Linden was hired this past spring, calling Pat and doing a story with him about Trevor being hired. Obviously, Trevor was a fellow he'd mentored as a player and beyond hockey, and really enjoyed having a nice 15-minute conversation with him over the phone. He was quite affable, so that was something I'll always treasure, the fact that I got a chance to talk to Pat. I hadn't seen him or talked to him since then, and you know, I consider myself quite fortunate that I was able to cover the team while he was involved, and I could certainly see the effects he had on this franchise. For Province Sports, this is Jim Jamieson.